This is Charter Local Edition. Brad Pomerance here. We are at the National Association of Counties Convention in Long Beach. We are joined by David Finigan. He is a supervisor in Del Norte County, which is in the northwest corner of California, the true northwest corner, true Northern California. Tell us about your beautiful county.
Well, welcome,
Thank
Brad.
you.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
It really is the true Northwest California. It's where the redwoods meet the sea, is what we like to say. Resource rich, with fishing, with timber. Not so much in the job market or the economy anymore.
We'll talk about that.
We have Pelican Bay State Prison up there.
We'll talk about
that. 4 sovereign nations up there.
Wow.
We have just it's a beautiful area with very hard-working individuals and families, and good place to live.
How many people in the county?
In the county, the population says about 28 or 29,000, but that's because we get to count Pelican Bay, or the city gets to count it for subvention funds. So really about 25,000 people.
And the city is?
The city is Crescent City.
That's it.
It's
one city in your county.
One city. That's it. Yeah.
I want to get a sense about the importance of Pelican Bay to your community. And I ask that in the context of really a revolution in criminal justice reform going on in our state. And so I ask you not so much about AB 109 or Prop 47, but about how these impact the economy in your region.
Well, Pelican Bay actually was a positive impact. It came in the late 80s, early 90s, and it supplanted all the lost jobs in the resource industry, the timber jobs, the logging jobs, the trucking jobs. Had it not been for the couple of thousand employees there, not to mention the construction that took place there, and the new homes and the new families, we would have dried up and blown away in Del Norte.
Wow.
So that group came in. By the group, I mean the correctional officers. They helped jumpstart Little League, some of the service organizations. They really bolstered up the economy as well as the community.
So given that the state prison population is dropping as a result of a U.S. Supreme Court case, as a result of AB 109, and as a result of Prop 47, is that impacting Del Norte?
Not really.
Okay.
No. Pelican Bay is there to stay. It has the SHU unit. Most of the people that are in Pelican Bay, they earned their way there.
I hear you, and not in a good way.
No, and they're not eligible to be released out.
I see. So it's a higher security prison.
It's a higher security. It is the highest security. They got rid of the low level a long time ago.
I see. I want to talk about kind of what we're facing in California, the question of the best of times, the worst of times. Because when you look at the statistics, it seems as if California's recovery is roaring. We are outpacing the nation on job growth, but yet up and down the state, north, south, east to west, we're facing homelessness.
Right.
You wouldn't think that in Del Norte, a county of, let's say, 25,000, there would be a homeless crisis. But in Del Norte, there is?
Sure. There is, I think, in any community. And it's not just a county homeless issue or a city homeless issue. It's really a community issue. Now, we've taken a program and a process which we call HELP. I'm sure we stole it from somebody, which is the Homeless Evaluation Liaison Program, to identify who the homeless are there. Some people say there's 125, some say 500. So,
are they, if I may ask, folks that have been released from Pelican Bay?
No.
Those folks are not being released per se?
No.
Are they family members of those in Pelican Bay?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
No, and what we found early on with Pelican Bay is most of the family members, if they came there, they became part of society there.
I see.
They really didn't, because it's not a very transient group. So, and there's no place to hide. There's no inner city.
So who are the homeless of your community?
Well, it's a myriad like any other community. It's some people that pass through that stay because it's easy to camp. There's the chronic homeless, the ones that have been without a home for 3 to 5 years. There are people that have usually dual diagnosis problems, alcohol and drug. There are some people that are families that just for one reason or another lost their home, families with children living in the woods.
I want to ask you about some of these folks because, look, it's not a crime to be homeless.
Right.
And some people choose that lifestyle. And I can envision someone who wants to fall off the grid and camp.
Right.
And be homeless in beautiful Del Norte.
Right.
Are we seeing that?
Oh, there's always an element of that. But I think what we're trying to do and what needs to happen is you identify who your homeless are first,
right.
whether not just the couch surfers.
I understand.
And say, okay, first of all, are you from here? Do you want to be here? Or do you have a support group someplace else? And if they do, then assist them get there. You also have to ask them whether they want help. And then through a matrix, say, okay, is it First Five? Is it community assistance? Right. Is it job training? Is it mental health, social services? Is it Veterans Affairs?
Are you finding, sir, that the homeless in your community want help? Because it's undeniable, I've learned this term, there are some homeless that are service resistant.
Right.
Maybe because they want to live off the grid, maybe because of mental illness, addiction, whatever it may be. What are you finding?
Well, I think you're exactly right, and that's what we're trying to identify, who does want help. That's the very first question we ask. Who are you? What's your issue? What do you need? What services can we, afford to give you? And how do we do that? And how do we come together as a community to do that? There is that element that's the lifestyle they choose. Right. There are some that probably are so anti-establishment and anti-social and deeply embedded in the drug scene that they wouldn't recognize the service if you handed it to them. But you can't leave it like that. So we're trying to approach them, identify where the camps are, identify the people, see what services can be provided, and get to work on it.
I want to ask you about transportation funding, if I may.
Sure.
We know that much of the funds that help to improve our roads, our bridges, et cetera, come from the gas tax.
Right.
Now, for better or for worse, the gas tax is down. Gas is cheaper, people are driving hybrids, people are driving less, for a whole myriad of reasons. So there's discussions about whether we should tinker with how we fund our road improvements. And there's been a discussion about vehicle miles traveled.
Right.
And that would literally be a system whereby we would look at our odometers. And let's put privacy issues aside.
Right.
For those that live in urban centers, they feel pretty good about that. They're not necessarily driving far. But for those that live in Del Norte, or in Riverside and commuting to Los Angeles, causes them some pain. Talk to us about that.
Well, it just so happens, Brad, that I'm one of the 15 people that sits on the California Transportation Commission Road Usage Charge Committee.
Okay, so I'm talking to the right person. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was established by the legislature, one of two supervisors, and the only one representing rural.
Boy.
So you're exactly right. You hit the nail on the head, and I find myself in a great position to where you talked about security. There's also options.
Right.
We have 7,800 people signed up. We wanted 5,000
right, that's true.
For the pilot program.
Right.
To see who's paying the tax, who's paying for the roads, and who's not. You mentioned the Prius. The gas tax, you're not paying your fair share if you have a Tesla or a Prius.
Well, Tesla, you're paying zero.
Exactly.
Prius, I got a Prius, I'm paying a little bit, but not as much as I would.
So, it's meant to, or it's designed to replace the gas tax, not to just supplant it. But so we'll do our findings over the next year.
Well, what do you think, though? You got to be conflicted. I mean, given that you represent a rural county, but the reality is, if you drive more, you're using the roads more.
Well, and that's one of the arguments I used.
Right.
And that's why I'm glad I'm there. Because for me, or anybody in Del Norte County, or in rural California, to have to get to your basic needs, to get to City Hall, to pick up your permit, to pay your bills, you have to travel more miles. And you don't necessarily have mass transit that you have available to you down here. So there needs to be some mechanism to where a mile is not a mile is not a mile. When
do you think we'll hear back from the
we just kicked it off.
Okay.
I think we're due to check in about a year.
Okay.
We'll monitor as we go. The findings will go back to the legislature. We will make a report, and then it's up to them to decide what to do.
Good to meet you.
Brad, thanks very much.
David Finigan.
Appreciate it.
He is a supervisor in Del Norte County. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're coming to you from NACO in Long Beach. This is Charter Local Edition.